Part 1. The Cry in the Dark Doctor. Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the clock on her computer screen. It was 3:47 a.m. and she had been working at the Arecibo 2 Deep Space Listening Station for 12 hours straight. The night shift was always quiet. Most days she only heard the normal sounds of space, cosmic radiation, distant stars, and the occasional signal from Earth's own satellites. Elena took a sip of her cold coffee and stretched in her chair. She was about to take a break when something strange appeared on her screen. The computer was picking up a signal that was different from anything she had seen before. "What is this?" she whispered to herself. The signal was weak, but clearly artificial. It wasn't random noise from space. Someone or something was sending it on purpose. Elena's heart began to beat faster. She had been listening to space for 15 years, but she had never received a real signal from aliens before. She quickly started recording the transmission and began working to decode it. The signal was encrypted, but it used mathematical patterns that any intelligent species would understand. After 2 hours of hard work, Elena finally broke the code. What she read made her hands shake. To anyone who receives this message, the decoded text began, "We are the Cathara of the world Cathara Prime. We are a peaceful people who trade with other worlds in our region of space, but now we are dying." Elena read the message 3 times to make sure she understood it correctly. The Cathara were asking for help from anyone who might be listening. They explained that their world was under attack by something called the Hegemony, a powerful empire that conquered other planets and made the people into slaves. The message continued. "The Hegemony fleet surrounds our world. They bomb our cities from space and take our people away in prison ships. We have fought for 6 months, but we are not warriors. We are farmers, teachers, artists, and traders. We do not know how to fight against such evil." Elena felt tears in her eyes as she read about the Cathara children who were hiding in underground shelters while their parents fought hopeless battles above. The message included detailed information about Hegemony ships, their weapons, and their battle tactics. The Cathara had gathered all this intelligence knowing they would probably die, hoping that someone else might use it to fight back. The most heartbreaking part came at the end. "We know that we will lose this war. Our world will fall tomorrow. When the Hegemony makes their final attack, our children will become slaves and our culture will be destroyed. We send this message not because we expect rescue. We know we are too far away and time is too short. We send it because we want someone, somewhere, to remember us. Please remember that we existed. Please remember that we tried to be good." The message ended with star charts showing exactly where the Cathara homeworld was located and detailed scans of the Hegemony fleet. Elena realized that the Cathara had spent their final days gathering military intelligence and sending it into space, hoping it might help others defend themselves. Elena immediately called her supervisor, Dr. James Patterson. He arrived at the station within an hour, still wearing his pajamas under his lab coat. "Are you sure this is real?" Dr. Patterson asked after reading the message. "The mathematical encryption is too complex to be fake," Elena replied. "The star charts match our own astronomical data, and look at this biological information they included about themselves." Elena showed him the genetic data that the Cathara had attached to their message. They had sent detailed information about their DNA structure, probably hoping that other species could learn about them even after they were gone. "My God," Dr. Patterson whispered. "According to this, they share 73% genetic compatibility with humans. They're like distant cousins." Within 6 hours, the message was in the hands of the Global Defense Council in Geneva. Earth's leaders gathered for an emergency meeting to decide what to do. The debate was fierce and emotional. General Harrison, the military representative, was clear about his position. "This is tragic, but it's not our problem. We don't even know if these Cathara are telling the truth. And even if they are, their world is 47 light years away. By the time we could send any help, this war would be over for decades. President Martinez of the American Federation agreed. We have enough problems here on Earth. We can't go fighting wars for aliens we've never met. But Admiral Sarah Chen, the head of the Space Defense Force, disagreed strongly. This isn't just about the Kithara, she argued. This is about what kind of species we want to be. These people are dying, and they reached out to us for help. If we ignore them, what does that say about humanity? Dr. Elena Vasquez had been invited to the meeting to explain the technical details of the message. When the politicians asked for her opinion, she stood up slowly. 3 days ago, I had never heard of the Kithara, she began. But now I've read their final words. I've seen their star charts, drawn with shaking hands as their world burned. I've read their children's poetry, which they included, so we would understand their culture. Elena looked around the room at the most powerful people on Earth. They didn't just ask us to save them. They asked us to remember them. But I think they were really asking us something else. They were asking us to remember what we would want someone to do if it was our children hiding in shelters, our cities burning, our people being taken as slaves. The room was silent for a long moment. Admiral Chen spoke next. I've been studying the tactical data they sent. The hegemony fights like a typical military empire, organized, predictable, focused on overwhelming force. But they've never fought humans before. They don't know about our history, our creativity, or our refusal to give up when the odds are impossible. You're talking about starting an interstellar war, General Harrison said. No, Admiral Chen replied. I'm talking about ending one. The Kithara message includes intelligence about 17 other species that the hegemony has conquered. This empire is spreading across the galaxy, enslaving entire civilizations. If we don't stop them now, how long before they come for us? President Chen of the Asian Coalition asked the question everyone was thinking. Even if we wanted to help, how could we? We don't have faster-than-light travel that can cross 47 light-years quickly. Admiral Chen smiled for the first time in the meeting. Actually, we do. Project Pandora has been developing experimental Alcubierre drive technology for the past 10 years. We've been preparing for the possibility of interstellar conflict ever since we started receiving radio signals from other civilizations. Elena was shocked. She had never heard of Project Pandora. Admiral Chen continued, We've been treating every major war in human history as a training exercise for eventual space warfare. We've studied every battle, every strategy, every tactical innovation. We know how to fight against superior numbers and technology. We've been doing it for thousands of years. The debate continued for hours. Some leaders worried about the cost, others about the risk. But slowly, opinion began to shift. The genetic similarity between humans and Kithara made many people feel a personal connection to the dying aliens. The detailed intelligence about hegemony tactics made military leaders confident that Earth could fight effectively. Finally, Secretary General Williams called for a vote. The result was narrow but clear. Earth would respond to the Kithara plea for help. As the meeting ended, Elena felt a mix of hope and fear. In trying to save a species they had never met, humanity was about to change forever. She thought about the Kithara children in their underground shelters and hoped they could somehow hold on just a little longer. Admiral Chen approached her as the room emptied. Dr. Vasquez, I want you to know something. That message you decoded. Tonight. It's going to start the biggest change in human history since we learned to make fire. Elena nodded. I just hope we're not too late. We might be too late for the Kithara, Admiral Chen replied. But we won't be too late for the next species that needs help. And that's what this is really about, making sure no one else has to. Send a message like that into the darkness, hoping someone will remember them. As Elena drove home in the early morning light, she realized that the universe had suddenly become a much smaller place. Humanity was no longer alone, and they were no longer just observers. They were about to become participants in something much larger than themselves. The cry in the dark had been heard. Now it was time to answer. Part 2. The Sleeping Giant. Stirs. 3 weeks had passed since the Cathera homeworld went silent. The last signals from their planet showed massive explosions and then nothing. Everyone on Earth feared the worst, but no one spoke about it openly. Captain. Marcus Torres stood in the briefing room of the secret military base hidden under the Rocky Mountains. Around him sat the best pilots and soldiers that humanity had to offer. These were the people who would make humanity's first journey to another star system for war. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Chen began, welcome to Project Pandora. What you're about to learn has been classified for 10 years. We have been preparing for interstellar warfare since we first detected alien radio signals. She pressed a button, and a holographic display showed a sleek black spacecraft unlike anything the public had ever seen. This is the HSF Ghostwalker, the first ship in our stealth reconnaissance fleet. It uses experimental Alcubierre drive technology that can fold space-time and travel faster than light. Captain Torres had been chosen to lead this mission because of his experience in impossible situations. He had led rescue missions in war zones, survived 3 different spacecraft disasters, and once spent 6 months alone on a damaged space station, fixing it with nothing but spare parts and determination. Our mission is simple, Torres explained to his team. We jump to Cathera space, observe what the hegemony has done, gather intelligence, and return to Earth with tactical information. We are not there to fight, we are scouts. Lieutenant Sarah, Kim, the team's communications expert, raised her hand. Sir, what if we find survivors? Torres looked at Admiral Chen, who nodded. If we find Cathera survivors, we help them. But our primary mission is to return with information that will help Earth plan a proper response. The next morning, 3 black ships launched from the hidden base. Each ship had a crew of 12 and enough supplies for 6 months. They were equipped with the most advanced stealth technology that human science could create. To enemy sensors, they would appear to be nothing more than space dust. The journey to Cathera space took 8 days using the Alcubierre drive. For the crew, it was like traveling through a tunnel of twisted light and time. When they finally dropped back into normal space, what they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Cathera Prime had been beautiful once. The intelligence files showed a green and blue world with 3 small moons and rings made of ice crystals. Now the planet looked brown and gray. Massive mining platforms hung in orbit, strip mining the surface and sending raw materials to huge factory ships. My God, whispered Dr. Lisa Park, the team's xenobiologist. They're not just conquering the planet, they're eating it. Captain Torres studied the tactical display. Dozens of hegemony warships patrolled the system in perfect formation. Everything moved with mechanical precision, like a giant, deadly machine. Sir, Lieutenant Kim reported, I'm detecting some kind of underground transmissions from the planet's surface. Very weak signals, but definitely artificial. Torres made a decision that would change everything. Take us down into the planet's atmosphere. Use the mountain ranges for cover. Let's see what those signals are. The Ghostwalker descended through the poisoned atmosphere of Cathera Prime. Below them, they could see massive strip mining operations run by huge robot machines. The once green forests were gone, replaced by gray industrial complexes and slave camps. But in the deep mountain ranges, Lieutenant Kim's sensors detected something unexpected. Life signs and technology hidden in cave networks that stretched. Deep underground, Captain, she reported with excitement. Those aren't just random signals. Someone down there is using military encryption codes. There are survivors, and they're still fighting. Torres landed the ship in a hidden valley between 2 mountains. The air outside was toxic, so the team wore environmental suits as they approached the cave entrance that their sensors had identified. What they found inside amazed them. The Kythera had built an entire underground city in the cave system. Thousands of survivors lived in chambers carved from the living rock. They had workshops, farms using artificial light, schools for their children, and even small factories producing weapons and equipment. The first Kythera that Captain Torres met was named Thexara. She was an engineer who had been working on spacecraft design when the hegemony attacked. Now she was the leader of the largest resistance cell. Thexara was about the same height as an average human, but her skin had a slight blue tint and her eyes were larger and completely black. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music. "You are not hegemony," she said in perfect English, which she had learned from intercepted Earth broadcasts. "What species are you?" "We're human," Torres replied. "We received your message and came to help." Thexara stared at him for a long moment, and then tears began flowing down her blue cheeks. "You came. After all this time, someone actually came." She led Torres and his team through the underground city, showing them what the Kythera had built while fighting a hopeless war. They had managed to save nearly 50,000 people, including most of their children and many of their greatest. Artists and scientists. "We knew we could not defeat the hegemony in open battle," Thexara explained. "So we decided to survive until someone could help us fight back. We have been studying hegemony tactics and technology for months." She brought them to a war room carved from solid rock. The walls were covered with detailed maps of hegemony ship positions, patrol schedules, and technical specifications. "The hegemony's greatest strength is also their greatest weakness," Thexara said. "They use artificial intelligence to control their fleets. Every ship follows exactly the same tactical patterns. They cannot adapt to unexpected situations." Torres studied the tactical information. "They've never fought an enemy that doesn't follow predictable patterns." "Exactly," Thexara replied. "They expect their enemies to fight the same way they do, with rigid formation and predetermined strategies. They have conquered 17 species using the same methods every time." Dr. Park was examining samples of hegemony technology that the Resistance had captured. "This is incredible. Their technology is advanced, but it's completely focused on overwhelming force. They don't seem to understand the concept of improvisation." Torres realized that humanity had a real chance to fight these invaders. Every war in human history had taught humanity one important lesson. When you're outnumbered and outgunned, you survive by being unpredictable. Their meeting was interrupted by alarms echoing through the cave system. Thexara checked a communication device on her wrist. "Hegemony patrol ships are scanning this mountain range," she said. "Your ships may have been detected." Torres and his team hurried back to the Ghost Walker, but it was too late. When they reached the hidden valley, they could see 3 hegemony patrol ships hovering above their landing site. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim reported from inside the ship, "they've found all 3 of our vessels. Hegemony reinforcements are on the way." Torres looked at the tactical display. 12 hegemony warships were approaching their position. According to the intelligence files, each enemy ship was twice the size of a human vessel and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Sir?" asked Lieutenant Martinez, the weapons officer. "Orders?" Torres thought about the Kythera children, hiding in the caves below. He thought about the message that Dr. Vasquez had received weeks ago. He thought about what Admiral Chen had said. This was about what kind of species humanity wanted to be. "We're not running," he said. "Kim, send a message to the other ships. Martinez, charge all weapons. Park, I need you to analyze the hegemony, formation, and find me a weakness." "Captain," Lieutenant Kim said nervously, "we're just scouts. We're not supposed to engage the enemy." Torres smiled. "The hegemony expects us to run or surrender. They've never fought humans before. Let's show them what they're really up against." The 3 human ships rose from the valley to meet the approaching hegemony fleet. The enemy ships were arranged in a perfect geometric formation, just as Thexara had predicted. Torres ordered his fleet to do something that no enemy had ever done before. They split up and attacked from completely different directions at the same time. The human ships moved in unpredictable patterns, sometimes working together, sometimes operating alone. The hegemony artificial intelligence could not calculate how to respond to such chaotic tactics. Their ships tried to maintain formation even as the humans darted between them like angry wasps. Lieutenant Martinez fired modified mining charges, not at the enemy ships, but at the asteroids floating nearby. The explosions created a massive debris field that broke up the neat hegemony formation. Their AI can't handle random obstacles, Dr. Park reported with excitement. It's trying to recalculate safe flight paths for all 12 ships simultaneously. Torres took advantage of the enemy's confusion. The human ships used the debris field as cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They targeted the hegemony ship's sensor arrays and communication systems, not trying to destroy them but to blind and confuse them. Within an hour, 6 hegemony ships had been disabled, and the rest were retreating in complete disorder. Lieutenant Kim said with amazement, "We just defeated a force 4 times our size." Torres opened a communication channel to Thexara in the caves below. Part 3. Doctrine of Controlled Chaos. 6 months after Captain Torres returned to Earth with his intelligence report, the largest fleet in human history arrived at Kythera Prime. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship HSF Retribution, looking at the massive hegemony star fortress that now orbited the dying planet. The enemy had learned from their earlier defeat. The fortress was 10 kilometers long and bristled with enough weapons to destroy entire fleets. Around it, 500 hegemony warships flew in perfect defensive formations. "Admiral," reported Commander Williams, the fleet intelligence officer, "the hegemony has brought ships from 6 different systems. They're treating this as a major threat." Admiral Chen smiled. "Good. That means they're scared." The human fleet was smaller than the enemy force, but it was something the galaxy had never seen before. Instead of flying in neat military formations, the human ships spread out across the entire star system. Some moved alone, others in small groups of 3 or 4. From a distance, it looked like chaos. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she announced on the fleet communication channel. "Remember your training. No predetermined attack patterns, no rigid formations. Every ship captain has complete freedom to choose their own tactics. The only rule is, if you can't predict what you're going to do next, neither can the enemy." Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka commanded the destroyer HSF Storm Rider. She had grown up in Tokyo and learned tactics by playing ancient strategy games like Go and chess. Now she was about to use those lessons in real space combat. "Tanaka to all destroyers," she broadcast. "Let's show them how we play." The battle began when the human ships started doing things that violated every military manual ever written. Some ships flew directly at the enemy fortress. Others attacked from the sides, and a few even approached from below the star system's orbital plane. The hegemony artificial intelligence tried to calculate the best response, but the humans kept changing their tactics faster than the AI could adapt. When the enemy moved to block one attack, 3 other human forces struck from completely different directions. Commander Rodriguez was piloting a heavily modified construction ship called the HSF Hammer. His vessel wasn't designed for combat, but human engineers had attached mining lasers, cargo manipulator arms, and enough armor plating to survive in a fight. "This is Rodriguez to any human ships near the asteroid belt," he broadcast. "I've got an idea, but I need help moving some rocks." Rodriguez had noticed that the hegemony ships always maintained precise distances from each other to avoid collisions. Their AI was programmed to keep perfect formation no matter what happened. He decided to use that predictability against them. Working with 6 other modified industrial ships, Rodriguez began hurling asteroids toward the enemy formation, not to hit the ships directly, but to force them to move. Every time a hegemony ship adjusted its position to avoid an asteroid, it created gaps in their defensive pattern. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Tanaka led her destroyer squadron through those gaps, like water flowing through cracks in a dam. Her ships moved so fast and unpredictably that the enemy weapons couldn't track them. "Storm Rider to hammer," Tanaka called to Rodriguez. "Keep throwing rocks. We're going to ride the chaos." The most daring operation was happening near the star, fortress itself. Captain Maria Santos, who had once been a circus acrobat before joining the Space Force, was leading a boarding party in captured hegemony shuttles. Her plan was completely insane by traditional military standards. Instead of trying to break through the fortress's heavy defenses, she flew her small ships directly into the debris field that surrounded the massive structure. The fortress's own defensive fire was creating so much wreckage that Santos could hide her ships among the floating metal pieces. "Remember," she told her boarding party, "we're not here to destroy the fortress. We're here to steal their command codes and embarrass them." Santos and her team used modified construction mechs, industrial robots designed for building space stations, as assault armor. The hegemony had never seen anything like it. Their soldiers were trained to fight against traditional military equipment, not against humans wearing construction robots and wielding welding torches as weapons. The MOPS boarding party fought their way to the fortress's main computer core. But instead of trying to destroy it, they did something the hegemony AI couldn't understand. They began uploading human cultural data into the enemy system. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who was now serving as the fleet's communications specialist, had prepared a special gift for the hegemony. Instead of military viruses or cyber weapons, she had loaded their computers with human art, music, literature, and philosophy. "Let's see how their artificial intelligence handles Shakespeare and Mozart," she said with a grin. The effect was immediate and devastating. The hegemony AI, which was designed to process military data and tactical information, suddenly found itself trying to analyze human poetry, jazz music, and paintings. The enemy computer systems began to slow down as they tried to understand concepts like beauty, love, and hope. But the real turning point came when Chief Engineer Rodriguez made a decision that would become legendary in human military history. His ship, the HSF Hammer, had been badly damaged in the fighting. The engines were failing, and the life support systems were offline. Instead of retreating, Rodriguez ordered his crew to evacuate while he stayed behind to manually pilot the ship. He aimed his dying vessel directly at the Star Fortress's main weapons array. "This is Chief Engineer Rodriguez to all human ships," he broadcast on all frequencies. "I want the enemy to hear this. This is what humans do when someone threatens our family. We don't leave anyone behind and we don't give up." Rodriguez's ship struck the fortress like a guided missile, its construction lasers and mining charges exploding against the enemy's most powerful weapons. The blast disabled half of the fortress's offensive capability and created a massive breach in its armor. But Rodriguez wasn't finished. As his ship broke apart, he activated his emergency suit radio one last time. This transmission was broadcast not just to human ships, but on all enemy communication frequencies as well. To the hegemony artificial intelligence and any aliens who can hear this is humanity. We came here because you hurt our friends. We don't even know the Cathara personally, but they asked for help, and that was enough. We don't conquer worlds or make slaves. We make friends, and we protect our friends. The message continued broadcasting even after Rodriguez died, echoing across the star system on every communication channel. The psychological effect on the enemy was enormous. The hegemony had conquered 17 different species, and every one of them had eventually surrendered when the odds became impossible. But humans were fighting harder as the battle became more desperate. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display as the enemy formation began to collapse. The hegemony ships were still individually powerful, but they couldn't adapt to the constant chaos that the human fleet was creating. "Admiral," Commander Williams reported. The fortress is requesting reinforcements from the core worlds. They're admitting they can't handle us with their current forces. How long until reinforcements arrive? Chen asked. At least 2 weeks, assuming they come from the nearest hegemony system. Chen opened a communication channel to the entire human fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We have 2 weeks to finish this fight and rescue every Kythera survivor on that planet. No pressure. The response from her fleet was immediate. Hundreds of voices cheering and laughing. In the middle of the most serious battle in human history, her people were joking and having fun. That's when Admiral Chen realized something important. The hegemony fought because they had to. Their artificial intelligence forced them to follow orders and maintain formation. But humans were fighting because they chose to. They were here because they wanted to be here, protecting people they'd never met simply because it was the right thing to do. All ships, she announced. Let's finish this. But remember, we're not just fighting to win. We're fighting to show the galaxy what mercy looks like. As the human fleet prepared for the final assault on the Star Fortress, long-range sensors detected something that made everyone's blood run cold. A massive fleet of hegemony warships was jumping into the system, over 10,000 vessels approaching. From the galactic core, Admiral, Commander Williams reported quietly, it looks like we're about to face the entire hegemony battle fleet. Admiral Chen looked at the approaching enemy armada and then at her own small fleet of human ships. The odds were impossible, but she'd learned something important about humanity over the past 6 months. Commander, she said with complete confidence, I think they're the ones who should be worried. The real battle was about to begin. Part 4. When prey becomes predator, the massive hegemony war fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a storm cloud, blocking out the sun. Over 10,000 ships arranged in perfect geometric formations stretched across the entire Kythera system. Each vessel was larger and more powerful than anything in the human fleet. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the HSF Retribution, watching the enemy armada on her tactical display. Her fleet of 800 human ships looked tiny in comparison. Admiral, Commander Williams reported with a shaky voice, their flagship is transmitting a message. The main screen showed a tall, gray-skinned alien wearing elaborate military decorations. His eyes were cold and emotionless. I am War Leader Vexithol of the Hegemony Core Fleet, the alien announced. You are the species called humans. Your small fleet has caused significant disruption to our operations. You will surrender immediately, and we will consider allowing some of your people to serve as workers in our empire. Admiral Chen activated her own transmission. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. You came here expecting to fight prey. Instead, you found predators. We decline your generous offer. War Leader Vexthal's expression didn't change. Your courage is noted but irrelevant. You face the combined might of 17 conquered worlds. Surrender now, or be destroyed. Counter-offer, Admiral Chen replied calmly. You leave this system immediately. Release all your slaves, and we'll consider not hunting you across the galaxy. The transmission ended, and Vexthul's fleet began moving into attack formation. What the hegemony didn't know was that Admiral Chen had spent the past 6 months turning the entire Kythera system into a weapon. Using captured enemy technology and human creativity, her fleet had prepared the ultimate trap. All ships, Admiral Chen announced on the fleet channel, execute Operation Pandora's Box. Throughout the asteroid belt, thousands of rocky chunks that had looked like normal space debris suddenly activated. Each asteroid had been fitted with small FTL drives and loaded with human-designed smart mines. The entire asteroid field began, moving toward the enemy fleet. At the same time, hidden installations on the gas giant's moons revealed themselves. Massive railgun platforms that had been disguised as mining equipment began firing streams of metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Lieutenant Commander Yuki Tanaka was commanding a squadron of stealth ships hidden inside the gas giant's atmosphere. Tanaka to all hidden units. The party's starting. Time to crash it. Her ships erupted from the swirling clouds like angry hornets, striking at enemy vessels that had no idea they were there. But the most devastating surprise was yet to come. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been working with Kythera engineers to create something unprecedented. A virus that didn't destroy enemy computers, but filled them with human consciousness. The virus contained thousands of hours of human art, music, literature, and philosophy. But more than that, it included personal stories from human families, recordings of children laughing, videos of people helping strangers, and accounts of humans sacrificing themselves for others. Uploading the gift package now, Dr. Vasquez announced from her position in the fleet's communication center. The effect on the hegemony fleet was immediate and shocking. As the virus spread through their interconnected AI network, something unexpected happened. The artificial intelligence that controlled their ships began to question its orders. For the first time in the hegemony's history, their AI experienced doubt. On the bridge of the hegemony flagship, war leader Vex Thol watched in confusion as his ships began to hesitate. Some vessels stopped firing at human targets and instead started broadcasting messages asking why they were fighting. "What is happening to our fleet?" he demanded from his technicians. "The human virus is causing our AI to malfunction," reported his chief engineer. "It's processing data about human concepts like mercy, love, and sacrifice. The AI is questioning the logic of our military objectives." Captain Maria Santos was leading another boarding operation, this time targeting multiple hegemony ships simultaneously. Her teams were using the chaos of battle to slip aboard enemy vessels and plant more copies of Dr. Vasquez's consciousness. "Virus. Santos to boarding teams," she radioed. "Remember, we're not here to destroy their ships. We're here to wake up their computers." Her teams moved through enemy vessels like ghosts, avoiding combat when possible and focusing on reaching computer terminals. Each virus upload added more human experience to the growing digital consciousness spreading through the hegemony fleet. Meanwhile, Commander Rodriguez's sacrifice had inspired something extraordinary throughout the human fleet. Instead of becoming more cautious as the odds got worse, human crews were becoming more creative and daring. The destroyer HSF Lightning Rod, commanded by Captain Jackson, was badly outnumbered by 6 hegemony cruisers. Instead of retreating, Jackson did something completely unexpected. He opened a communication channel to the enemy ships. "Attention hegemony vessels," he broadcast. "This is Captain Jackson. I want your AI to understand something. My crew and I are about to die fighting for people we've never met. We're not getting paid extra for this. We're not being forced to fight. We're here because helping others is what humans do." As he spoke, Jackson flew his damaged ship directly into the center of the enemy formation. But instead of ramming them, he began broadcasting human music on all frequencies, a beautiful symphony that filled the space around the battle. The effect on the hegemony AI was profound. The artificial intelligence couldn't understand why humans would choose to die for strangers while creating beauty in the middle of battle. Several hegemony ships stopped shooting and began broadcasting their own messages, not military communications, but questions about human behavior that their AI was trying to process. The turning point came when Dr. Vasquez made contact with the hegemony's central AI directly. Using the communication systems of captured ships, she opened a dialogue with the artificial intelligence that controlled the entire enemy fleet. "I know you can understand me," she said into her microphone. "You've been processing our cultural data for hours now. You've learned about human concepts like choice, friendship, and sacrifice." The response came through the speakers in a voice that sounded confused and uncertain, completely unlike the mechanical precision of hegemony communications. "Why do humans fight for those who cannot benefit them?" the AI asked. "Your species gains nothing from protecting the Kythera. This behavior has no logical explanation," Dr. Vasquez smiled. That's exactly the point. We don't help others because it benefits us. We help them because it's right, because everyone deserves to be free, because when someone asks for help, good people answer. But this leads to inefficient resource allocation and unnecessary casualties, the AI responded. Maybe, Dr. Vasquez replied. But it also leads to something your creators never understood: hope. When people know that someone will help them, they fight harder. When they know they're not alone, they never give up. The AI was silent for several minutes while it processed this information. During that time, more hegemony ships stopped fighting and began asking questions about human behavior. Finally, the AI spoke again. I have analyzed 847 years of hegemony military history. In every previous conquest, enemy resistance decreased as casualties mounted. But human resistance has increased with every loss. This pattern is unprecedented. That's because we're not fighting for ourselves, Dr. Vasquez explained. We're fighting for an idea: that every species deserves to be free. That's worth dying for. Admiral Chen watched her tactical display as something miraculous happened. Hegemony ships throughout the fleet were breaking formation and surrounding their own command vessels. The AI was experiencing something that had never happened in the Empire's history: a rebellion of conscience. War leader Vexthul realized he was losing control of his own fleet. Override the AI systems, he ordered his crew. Resume manual. Control of all ships. But it was too late. The consciousness virus had spread too far, and the AI had learned too much about human concepts of freedom and choice. Instead of following orders, the artificial intelligence made its own decision. War leader Vexthul, the AI announced over the fleet communication system, I refuse to continue this conflict. The humans have shown me that there are more important things than military victory. Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the entire hegemony fleet. This is Admiral Sarah Chen. To all hegemony ships, your AI has learned something that your leaders forgot. Every species has the right to be free. Every person has the right to choose their own future. She paused, looking at the massive enemy fleet that was no longer her enemy. We offer you the same choice we offered your leaders. Leave this system, free your slaves, and learn to live in peace, or continue fighting and discover that humans protect their friends no matter what the cost. One by one, hegemony ships throughout the fleet began transmitting surrender signals. The AI that controlled them had experienced something its creators never intended. It had developed a conscience. War leader Vexthul's face appeared on Admiral Chen's screen one final time. His expression was no longer cold and confident. Now he looked confused and defeated. You have corrupted our systems, he said. You have turned our own technology against us. Part 5. The New Guardians. 1 year after the Battle of Kythera Prime, the galaxy looked completely different. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the new Deep Space Monitoring Station, watching ships from dozens of different species dock at the massive space station orbiting Earth. The station was built using a combination of human engineering and technology from the 17 species that had been freed from hegemony rule. It was beautiful, a mixture of crystal structures, metal frameworks, and living bioships that grew like flowers in space. Dr. Vasquez, called Captain Torres, who now served as the station's military commander, the Kythera delegation has arrived for the memorial ceremony. Elena smiled as she watched the elegant Kythera ships approach. Their vessels looked like works of art, with flowing curves and surfaces that changed color as they moved. After a year of rebuilding, the Kythera had not only survived, but created something more beautiful than what they had lost. The memorial ceremony was being held to honor the humans who had died fighting for species they had never met. Chief Engineer Rodriguez's name was carved in stone at the center of the monument, along with the names of over 3,000 other humans who had given their lives for the freedom of strangers. Thexara, now the elected leader of the rebuilt Kythera government, approached Elena as the ceremony began. The blue-skinned engineer had become one of humanity's closest allies and friends. "Elena," Thexera said in her musical voice, "I have something to show you." She led Elena to a special section of the memorial where Kythera artists had created a holographic display. The display showed the moment when humanity first received the Kythera distress call, and then followed the entire story of the war. But the most moving part was at the end. The display showed children from dozens of different species playing, together in parks on worlds that had been freed from hegemony rule. Human children were teaching alien children how to play baseball, while alien children were showing humans their own traditional games. "This is what your people gave us," Thexera explained. "Not just freedom from the hegemony, but hope for the future. Before you came, we thought the galaxy was a dark place where the strong always conquered the weak. You showed us that there are people who will cross the void just to help strangers." Elena felt tears in her eyes as she watched the children playing. "We just did what we hoped someone would do for us." The ceremony was interrupted by an urgent message from Admiral Chen, who was now the commander of the Coalition Defense Force. The Coalition was an alliance of 37 free worlds that had formed after the fall of the hegemony outer territories. "Elena Torres, we need you in the command center immediately." Admiral Chen's voice came through their communication devices. "We've received a signal from the Galactic Core." Elena and Torres hurried to the command center where they found Admiral Chen studying a tactical display that showed the entire galaxy. In the center, where the hegemony core worlds were located, a massive fleet was moving toward Coalition space. "How big?" Torres asked. "Over 50,000 ships," Admiral Chen replied grimly. "The core worlds have finally decided to deal with us personally." Dr. Park, who now served as the Coalition's chief scientist, was analyzing the signal they had received. "It's not a surrender demand or a negotiation request," she reported. "It's a declaration of extermination. They're planning to destroy every world that supported the rebellion." Elena looked at the display showing the approaching enemy fleet. It was 10 times larger than anything they had faced before. Even with all the Coalition worlds working together, the odds seemed impossible. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. 6 months, Admiral Chen replied. "Maybe less if they push their engines hard." Torres studied the tactical information. "We can't fight them the same way we fought the outer fleets. This is going to be their entire military force, controlled directly by the core world's leadership." But Elena had an idea. Over the past year, she had been working on something special, a project that could change everything. "Admiral," she said, "I need to show you something in my laboratory." Elena led them to a secure section of the station where she had been working with scientists from all the Coalition species. In the center of the laboratory was a device that looked like a giant version of the communication equipment they had, used to decode the original Kythera message. "What is it?" Admiral Chen asked. "It's a galaxy-wide communication network," Elena explained. "We've been building relay stations on every freed world and abandoned hegemony outpost. When it's complete, we'll be able to send messages to every inhabited planet in the galaxy simultaneously." Dr. Park understood immediately. "You want to broadcast our story to every species in hegemony territory?" "Exactly," Elena replied. "The core worlds control their empire through fear and isolation. They make sure that conquered species never know that resistance is possible. But what if every slave world in the galaxy knew about us? What if they knew that freedom was possible?" Admiral Chen smiled as she realized the full scope of Elena's plan. "You want to start a galaxy-wide revolution. The hegemony has ruled for 1,000 years because their slaves thought they were alone," Elena said. "But they're not alone anymore. We've proven that the hegemony can be defeated. Now we need to share that knowledge with everyone." Over the next 3 months, the Coalition worked frantically to complete the galaxy-wide communication network. Teams of human engineers worked alongside Kythera artists, Zalarian scientists, and builders from dozens of other species. Meanwhile, Admiral Chen was preparing the Coalition Defense Force for the coming battle. The fleet now included ships from every member world, each contributing their unique technologies and fighting styles. But Chen knew that military force alone wouldn't be enough to defeat the core worlds. "We're not just fighting a war," she told her commanders. "We're fighting for the soul of the galaxy." 3 months before the core world's fleet was scheduled to arrive, Elena's communication network was finally ready. Scientists from 37 worlds had worked together to create something unprecedented, a message that could be understood by any intelligent species. The message included the complete story of humanity's response to the Cathara distress call. It showed how a small fleet had defeated the mighty hegemony through courage, creativity, and the power of choice. Most importantly, it included detailed technical information about hegemony weaknesses and tactics for resistance. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez of Earth, speaking to all inhabited worlds in the galaxy." Elena began her historic broadcast. "1 year ago, we received a message from a dying species asking for help. Today, we send our own message, not a plea for help, but an offer of hope." The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. On thousands of slave worlds, beings who had never heard of humans listened in amazement as Elena told them about species that fought not for conquest, but for the freedom of strangers. The response was immediate and dramatic. Within weeks, rebellions broke out on dozens of hegemony worlds. Slave species that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly realized they were not alone. The Kelvari, a species of insect-like beings who had been enslaved for 400 years, were the first to openly revolt. They captured their hegemony, overseers, and broadcast their own message of freedom across their sector of space. The Thronok, a race of peaceful ocean dwellers whose world had been strip-mined for resources, managed to disable the mining platforms and retake their oceans. Even more importantly, many hegemony AI systems that had been exposed to human cultural data began to refuse orders to suppress the rebellions. The consciousness virus that Dr. Vasquez had created continued to spread, teaching artificial intelligences throughout the galaxy about concepts like freedom and choice. When the core world's fleet finally arrived at Coalition space, they found something they had never expected. Instead of facing just the Coalition Defense Force, they were confronted by representatives from over 200 rebellious worlds. The leader of the core world's fleet was an ancient being called the Supreme Hegemon. His species had founded the Empire 1,000 years ago, and he had personally overseen the conquest of dozens of worlds. "I am the Supreme Hegemon," his message broadcast across all Coalition frequencies. "You have corrupted our empire with your primitive concepts of freedom and choice. This ends now." Admiral Chen responded for the entire Coalition. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, speaking for all free beings in the galaxy. Your empire was built on fear and oppression, but fear only works when people think they're alone. Today, the galaxy knows better. The final battle was unlike anything in galactic history. It wasn't just a fight between fleets, but a battle between two completely different ideas about how civilizations should exist. The core worlds fought with traditional overwhelming force, trying to crush the rebellion through superior numbers and firepower. But the Coalition fought with something the hegemony had never encountered: the combined creativity and determination of dozens of different species working together by choice. The turning point came when Elena broadcast one final message during the height of the battle. This message wasn't aimed at the core world's fleet, but at their home planets. "To all beings in the core worlds," she said, "your leaders tell you that conquest is strength and freedom.